February 11th, 1990. Tokyo, Japan. 9 o'clock in the morning, and in a boxing ring on the other side of the world, the impossible happened. The most feared man alive went down. But before we talk about the knockout, we need to talk about the 23 days before it, because that is the real story. James Buster Douglas grew up in Columbus, Ohio. Son of a boxer, grandson of a fighter. The ring was in his blood before he could walk. He was talented, genuinely, frighteningly talented. At 6'4", with a jab that could stop time, people who knew boxing said he had everything. Everything except one thing: the fire, the obsession, that thing that separates the good from the legendary. His record going into 1990 was 29 wins, 4 losses, a draw. Solid. Not spectacular. He'd had his chances. He'd let some of them go. The boxing world had already written its verdict on Buster Douglas. Talented, but inconsistent. Could have been great. Not hungry enough. He was labeled, boxed in, dismissed. And then his mother got sick. Her name was Lula Pearl Douglas. And if you want to understand what happened on February 11th, 1990, you need to understand her first. Buster said it himself. She was his motivator. Not his trainer. Not his manager. His mother. The woman who, when Buster was 10 years old and came home crying after being bullied, slammed him to the ground, put her knee in his chest and said, "If you don't go back out there and face that boy, you're going to have to fight me." That was Lula Pearl. She was the one who made him face things, his whole life. Every time he wanted to quit, every time the fire went cold, she was the one who wouldn't let him. In January of 1990, Lula Pearl was ill, seriously ill. But she got in her car. She drove to his house. She knocked on his door, and she asked him where his head was at. One last time. Buster Douglas promised his mother he would beat Mike Tyson. He made her that promise, face to face. And she went home. And on January 18th, 1990, Lula Pearl Douglas died of a stroke. She was 46 years old. The fight was 23 days away. Now, let's talk about what the rest of the world was saying. Because they weren't worried about Buster Douglas. They weren't worried about him at all. Mike Tyson was 23 years old, 37 fights, 37 wins, 33 by knockout. The youngest heavyweight champion in history. No fighter had taken him past the 5th round in 3 years. The bookmakers didn't even bother taking bets on this fight. Only one casino in Las Vegas would touch it, the Mirage. And their odds man said this: "Nobody thought Douglas had a chance. I started the line at 27 to 1. Someone bet $54,000 just to win $2,000. I moved it to 32. A man from California bet $93,000 to win 3. I couldn't find anyone willing to take Douglas. The night of the fight, it was still 42 to 1. 42 to 1. The world had spoken. Buster Douglas was not just expected to lose. He was expected to be destroyed. Quickly. Painlessly. So Tyson could move on to the real fight. The New York Times wrote, 4 days before the fight, "The only person who can beat Tyson is Tyson himself." But here's what nobody was writing about. Here's what nobody was paying attention to. In a gym in Tokyo, a grieving man was training like his life depended on it. Because it did. He'd made a promise. And Buster Douglas had never broken a promise to his mother. The morning of February 11th, 1990. The Tokyo Dome filled up. 40,000 people. None of them there to see Buster Douglas win. They were there to see how long he'd last. But people in his corner noticed something. He wasn't scared, not even a little. His trainer said she was his centerpiece. I think James will turn this into a positive. I really believe that. And on the other side of that same arena, Mike Tyson was late to his own warm-up. His corner didn't even have a cold compress. His new trainer had never managed a fighter before. His promoter was Don King. Tyson had barely trained. He thought he didn't need to. Drop a comment right now. Did you believe Buster Douglas could win? Because almost nobody did. Almost. The bell rang, and from the very first second, something was wrong for Tyson. Douglas didn't flinch. He didn't back up. He didn't do what every other fighter did. He walked forward. Round 1, Douglas controlled the jab. Round 2, Tyson's punches found nothing but air. Round 3, the commentators started looking at each other. Round 4, something was happening that hadn't happened before. Round 5, Tyson's left eye began to close. By round 5, the most feared boxer on the planet could only see out of one eye, and he had no cold compress in his corner, because nobody prepared for this. Nobody planned for Buster Douglas to still be standing. Round 8. Tyson, desperate, humiliated, half-blind, landed an uppercut. Buster went down. The crowd erupted. For one moment, the natural order seemed to be restored. The script was back on track. The giant was going to wake up. The underdog was going to lose, like they always do. But Buster Douglas got up. Before the count. Steady. Focused. Not afraid. He would say later, I looked beyond all of it. I knew I was on the right track. I was fighting for more than a win. He was fighting for a woman who drove to his house while she was sick to ask him where his head was at. He was fighting for a promise made in January. He was fighting for 23 days of grief he'd swallowed whole and turned into fuel. Round 9. Tyson barely survived it. Subscribe. Because we have more stories like this, but nobody has told the way they deserve to be told. Round 10. February 11th, 1990. 9 in the morning in Tokyo. And the man the world forgot. Through a combination. A right uppercut launched Tyson's head back. Then a left. Then a right. Then a left. And Mike Tyson, for the first time in his career, hit the canvas. 1, 2, 3. Tyson reached for his mouthpiece, fumbling, dazed. The most feared man alive. Couldn't find his mouthpiece. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It was over. Buster Douglas was the heavyweight champion of the world. The WBA refused to recognize it. The WBC refused to recognize it. Don King screamed. Tyson's camp protested. They tried to take it from him. They tried to rewrite what had just happened in front of 40,000 witnesses on live television. 4 days later, amid worldwide public outcry, the protests were withdrawn. Buster Douglas was officially the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. They called him inconsistent. They called him unmotivated. They called him a warm-up. They put him at 42-1. They didn't even bother watching his training camp. None of them knew about the woman who slammed a 10-year-old boy to the ground and told him to go face his fears. None of them knew about the promise made in January. None of them knew that grief, in the right hands, becomes armor. Buster Douglas was asked years later how he wanted to be remembered. He said, as a gentleman, a kind man who believes in himself, a humble guy who had an opportunity and took advantage of it. He didn't say champion. He didn't say legend. He said humble. That's who Lula Pearl raised. On February 11th, 1990, a 42-1 underdog walked into the Tokyo Dome, carrying 23 days of grief and a promise he refused to break. And he changed sports history, not because he was the best, but because on that one day, nobody loved harder. Karma has a memory, and so did Buster Douglas. If this story hit different, you already know what to do. And the next one is already waiting for you.